What's up YouTube, I'm Mike, and today I'm back with another video. This is going to be sort of a follow-up to the video that I shot earlier today titled How to Get Your Girl Interested in Sex Every Day. If you've seen that video already, then you'll understand that that video is coming from the perspective of basically tapping into the neurochemistry side of how our bodies and our brains work. And so this is a really good set of circumstances that works in a very broad type of way. Like the methodologies and the things that I explain in that video as it pertains to how a woman's mind views and approaches sex, how oxytocin plays a huge role in activating the reward pathways and keeping her interested in engaging in the behavior that you're looking to engage in. This is still going to unfortunately create a very, very surface level type of sexual interaction with your partner. And this is unfortunately, where a lot of people drop off. So there may be people watching that video who are like, I never really had trouble early on in the relationship getting sex frequently. The problem was that as the relationship ground on, the various things seem to occur. These could be sexual dysfunctions, mental blocks, just a variety of things that tend to happen. And the reason for this is because in the early going of a relationship, you are in a brain state that is evolutionarily designed to handicap your critical thinking. I mean, this is literally the point of lust and puppy love. The reason for this is because nature does not care about you having quality, enjoyable, emotional, connected sex with your partner. So what I talked about in the first video was the biology side. That's how to manipulate nature and what it's trying to get you to do anyway. But that's not really going to address the concerns and problems that are going to arise in a deeper, more committed relationship. Because once you've been with your partner for 2 weeks, 2 months, give or take, generally somewhere in about that range of time, when the puppy love starts to wear off, your brain starts to wake up to who this person really is. So in the early going, when you're early on in a relationship, you may have noticed that you'll notice a lot of problems. Maybe the voice in your head is pointing out some things about this person that you're like, I don't know if she's, I don't know if I really like that. But the puppy love and the lust will overcome that voice, and it will convince you that no matter what your differences are, you're going to be able to overcome them. So maybe she comes from a totally different background. Maybe she comes from a different race. Maybe she lives on the other side of the fucking earth and she's only in town for 2 weeks for spring break. There could be all of these really, really important roadblocks in the way to actually having a meaningful relationship that the limbic system is going to just overplay and convince you that, oh, no, it's fine. We're going to figure out a way to make this work. It's never intending on making it work. Its only intention, your limbic system only has one purpose, and that is to make sure that you pass on your DNA. Whether or not you stay together is not the purview of your limbic system. In fact, in a lot of ways, the male and female limbic system is designed to create cheating. It wants you to spread your DNA around. It doesn't really want you to engage in a monogamous relationship because this is not really ideal for propagating the species. So this is when we get into another stage of the game where now the puppy love has worn off, and now you're starting to see this person for who they really are, who they really are, with all of their potential character flaws, and minus all of the brain chemicals that basically had their sex drive on speed. So there is very possible that oftentimes in relationships, once you get past that beginning stage, partners will often both feel like they got cheated, like they got lied to, like they fell in love with a person that doesn't really exist. When you are dating somebody, what you are falling in love with is a possibility. The person you are falling in love with is the person they can be. They're not lying to you. They're telling you who they are on a deep personal level. The problem is this just in practical practice is not what really comes out. So a guy makes you all these promises when he's dating you. Like, I know when I was dating my wife, I was always telling her, oh, I'm going to take you traveling and we're going to go to art shows, and she liked theater in the park and museums and all this shit I have no fucking interest in doing. I didn't have any interest in doing this, but I had an interest in her. I wanted her, and so I was willing to convince myself that I would do all of these things that I didn't really want to do because that's the person I wanted to be for her. Are you going to bed, baby? Come here. Come on. Night-night, sleep tight. I love you.
Love you.
Say night-night.
Night-night.
Actually, you know what? Sorry, I had to say goodnight to my daughter. So, the people that we are in the dating phase, it's not fake. It's just the people that we're capable of becoming. And so that's what you really focus on throughout the rest of a long-term relationship, is realizing the person that you can become. The problem is that when those chemicals wear off, all of this person's flaws are suddenly going to become very apparent. And everybody has them, and this is where all of a sudden things usually hit a roadblock, and guys who are not really committed to a girl, the second the puppy love wears off, that's when they tend to hop out the door. Because now the real work begins. So I'm gonna talk about some of the problems that I've had in my relationships, most predominantly my current marriage, and some of the ways that we have overcome them, some of the ways I've overcome things that she was not able to do anything about, because this is what sets the stage for actual real long-term relationships. So a lot of these things may be things that people experience for different reasons. So, like, for example, in my previous video, I was talking about the importance of a woman having an orgasm. In order for a woman to truly enjoy sex and want to do it on a regular basis, she needs to be getting something physical out of it. But what if you have a situation where she doesn't know how to orgasm? Where she either doesn't know how, has never done it, or it is not good at being able to produce this effect consistently. One of the problems that my wife and I had in the beginning of our marriage was that she had dealt with something that's basically called vaginal atrophy. There's a lot of Christian people in the world who preach this idea of abstinence until marriage as if it's some kind of a fucking virtue. And there are ways, I guess, that this can be a good thing. I'm not saying that you should absolutely, that you need to be out whoring around. But you do need to understand that your body is a fucking machine, all parts of it. And in the same way that I don't think any person, I hope to God, there's no crazy fuck religion out there that says, we're going to put your left arm in a cast until you get married, so that you never use your left arm. It's totally immobile for the first however many years of your life you live in an unwed state. And on your wedding night, we're going to have this ceremony where we break open the cast, and you'll get to have the full use of your left arm after you've married your spouse. If somebody was stupid enough to do this, and this person literally lived with an immobile arm for 27 years, which was the case with my wife, when they broke open that cast, they would find this horribly desiccated arm that was potentially completely non-functional, because the muscles would have never bent or moved or lifted or flexed or done anything. This leads to muscular atrophy. The muscles, when they're not being used, atrophy. They shrink and shrivel away. The connections to the brain cannot necessarily be broken physically, but the brain has never been firing these neuronal connections. And so you're going to have all manner of problems with this arm that's been immobilized for 27 years. And so my wife, having been brought up in this incredibly, insanely religious background where she was told not only to not have sex until she was married, but to not masturbate or not even allow herself to feel physical, like sexual feelings, like anything that caused sexual stimulation to her body was bad. She was supposed to not allow that to happen. And so, you know, for me in the beginning, I just couldn't even fathom how that was possible. My first wife actually told me a story that the way she learned to masturbate when she was a young girl was she was taking a bath. She didn't like taking showers. She had this mane of hair. Like, she had the most dense, beautiful brown hair I've ever seen in my life, but it grew in really thick. And so, you know, washing it meant an entire fucking process. And so sometimes she'd just take a bath if she wasn't going to wash her hair. And so she was sitting in the tub, and you know how you have the water spout that comes out of the, out of the tub? She was holding her hand under the spout, and it caused the water to kind of shoot in like a fountain. And when that little thrust of water landed between her legs, she noticed that it felt good. And so she kept engaging this behavior long enough that it ended up causing her to have an orgasm. So that's how my first wife accidentally learned to masturbate. I assume that this is how it happened for every person, but I could not possibly have imagined how sick and deranged and disgustingly abusive my current wife's parents are. These people are fucking monsters. The way they treated her should be illegal, but it's not, unfortunately. So they trained her to basically break her own body. Anytime she experienced something that caused sexual sensitivity, she just basically controlled it with her brain or stopped doing it. Told herself, no, that's not okay to feel that way. That's not okay. That's not what that is. So water in the shower, or maybe like a jet in the pool, or any of these things that she stumbled onto, she basically tried to stop it from having an effect. And the brain is a very, very powerful organ. You can literally desensitize yourself to any manner of things, both emotionally and physically. You can manifest pain where there isn't any. You can overcome pain with the pure power of your mind. Your mind can cause so many problems for you just based on the things that you tell yourself. And based on your beliefs, you will behave in accordance to what you believe. So she was not only told not to have any kind of interaction that could possibly cause sexual sensitivity, but that she was not supposed to engage in any kind of behavior that could possibly be arousing to a man, because if she caused a man to become aroused, that she was responsible for his sexual sin. So she never learned how to connect her brain to her clitoris or to her vagina. She never learned how the pathways to fire to her sex organs, that they atrophied. And her vagina atrophied from never having been used in the way that it was designed to use. So when she first got into a relationship with her husband, and now here we are, it's wedding night 27 years down the road, and she thinks they're just going to go about having sex. She's got no lubrication. She's got, I don't know about her arousal state, but I know that she reported that she was mentally, was excited about it, but that it ended up being incredibly painful. Her body was not ready for what was to come. And so within the first couple of weeks of their marriage, they're already having massive, massive problems because sex is incredibly excruciating to Sarah. And so this is something that effectively they never got solved. She did eventually learn to have orgasms, primarily from toys, if I recall. I think it was toys that was the only thing that primarily elicited this response. But they went to doctors and therapists and psychiatrists. She had all manner of procedures done. There's all kinds of things that go on that caused all of these problems. Okay, so I've beaten this dead horse before. You're probably saying, okay, what the fuck does this have to do with me and my wife? What it has to do is that there's a myriad of reasons why young girls don't learn about their bodies or don't you know, it's not, they live in cultures where it's not accepted. This is a lot less common now with this whole new sexual revolution that's taking place in the country and these women's rights movements. But for people who are my age, there are still women out there who have never learned to have an orgasm because they have never taken the time to get to know their own bodies. And by the time you get to an adulthood or to your 20s and life is taking hold and you're trying to pay bills and take kids here and do this and do that, you may never get there. And so if you're in a relationship where you're saying, yeah, I would love for my wife to have orgasms every day, I don't care how she gets them, but she's not having them, this is how you can start to bridge that gap. So when I got with Sarah, I had the full expectation that we were not going to have regular sex. In fact, I told her during the puppy love phase that I was talking about, like, oh no, it's okay. It's okay. I'll be okay. Never mind the fact that I've spent my entire life having multiple orgasms a day. I'm so in love with you that even if you're totally sexually dysfunctional, we'll figure it out. That's what I said. Because I was in that shutdown of all kind of logical thinking stage of the limbic system puppy love phase. And when we started having problems, I realized real quickly, okay, this is something that we have to overcome. And so the way that I overcame that is I tried to put her into a place, I tried to create a place of safety and security where she could slowly begin to learn about her body and understand the feelings that she was having, the thoughts that she was having. I tried to make her feel like she was safe with me, that she could relax with me, she could learn with me. So we had sex in the beginning and it was surprisingly functional out the gate. I can remember in the very beginning, you know, we first started having sex and she was kind of shocked that it wasn't a total disaster, but she was still so programmed. And so she would be like, okay, well, you know, maybe we should take a few days. You know, she would like have herself convinced that if we had sex, you know, too frequently that she was starting to get sore. And I was always really suspicious of this soreness because it didn't really make any good biological sense to me. It seemed to be more of a trained behavior than it was a physical limitation. And the thing that can be such a mind fuck for a person is that she could have actually been experiencing what she thought was soreness. Like your brain can cause your body to feel pain where there is no actual pain stimulus. I mean, this happens all the fucking time. You could probably sit here and give yourself a panic attack or make your chest start hurting and cause you to think you're having a heart attack. You can manifest a lot of conditions in your own body purely with your mind. These are called somatoform disorders. When you manufacture a condition that has a list of symptoms, when there's no actual physical biological cause, this is called a somatoform disorder. And coincidentally, when I created, you know, layers of trust, when Sarah and I began communicating about her past, I found out that she had been treated for at least 3 or 5 different conditions that when you look them up are actually somatoform disorders. So she was always going to doctors and they would give her some fucking diagnosis, but there's no real treatment for it. Because doctors are not real prone to go, look, here's the thing. You're a fucking basket case. You're a lunatic. There's nothing wrong with you. You are manufacturing all of these pains because to the patient, to some degree, it doesn't matter. It's like if I got a toothache, I got a toothache. My tooth hurts. It doesn't. If my brain is causing my tooth to hurt, I still want you to fix the tooth pain. And the doctor that you're going to, the dentist is not going to be able to tell you how to stop fucking up your tooth with your brain. Which is why she's seeing all of these varying specialists. She's got a sex therapist and a general, and she's got back surgeons. She's got all these fucking people on board because they're all coming at this thing from a different perspective. So the answer to all of this, and basically any possible scenario that you could possibly be having with your significant other where they are having trouble connecting with their own body, the problem is trust. That's the problem. The whole problem they're really having is trust. They don't trust themselves. They don't trust their feelings. They don't trust their doctors. They don't trust their partners. They're continuously being told all of these competing things by their own brains, by their partners, by their doctors. They're being told all of these different things, and all they know is that nothing's working. That's what they know. Nothing's working. And so it's like, what would you expect them to do? So this is how a person can become a basket case. When your body seems to be at war with the world around you, how do you solve this problem? The way I set out to solve it was at first to assure her there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing physically wrong with you. Now, how did I know this? The way that I knew this was that the first sexual interaction that she and I had, the first time I touched her sexually, we had gone to a flower festival in a suburb of Dallas where we live. And we had some wine. We had this really great time. She'd gotten kind of loose. It was at the loose, like, you know, with the wine. It was at the right time in our relationship for things to be taking the next step sexually. So we got in the car. And we started kissing and touching, and I started trying to finger her. I put my hand in her pants, and she was kind of resistant, and I'm of course being persistent, and I worked my way to rubbing her, manipulating her, and she was afraid she wasn't gonna be able to get wet, and she got sufficiently wet for me to get my fingers inside of her. I was literally driving my car down Highway 635 in Garland, Texas, fingering her in the passenger seat on the way to my parents' house, and she had a full-blown squirting orgasm all over what was basically a brand new car, the front seat of a brand new car. She just went off on the highway en route to my parents' house. Now we've got a problem. She's soaking wet, sitting in his chair. We're getting ready to go to my parents' house. I don't remember. I think we told them that she spilled a drink on herself. I don't remember what the fuck we told them. Maybe we didn't go to their house. But
I didn't get out of the car.
What?
I didn't get out of the car.
She didn't get out of the car. But the key point here is that right out the gate, she was able to lubricate, to be fingered without pain, be fingered to a squirting orgasm without pain. So I knew right out the gate, like I was giddy in the car when it happened. I'm just like, this is perfect. I knew it. I knew all along that her problems were in her head. They were not biological. Like I used to tell her, the pipes are not broken. Your pipes, your plumbing works. We've proven that. So when we got into the depth, into the actual relationship itself, and we started to try to have sex together, and she started having these old problems rear their ugly head, the way you cope with this is to constantly remind your partner, there's nothing wrong with you. Okay, if there was a physical problem, it would have been found years ago. There's nothing wrong with your body. The only thing that is wrong is that you don't trust your feelings, me, the world around you. You just don't have all of these connections made. And so what it takes is a tremendous amount of patience so that they can learn to trust that you're not lying to them, trying to take advantage of them, trying to hurt them in some way. And that can be difficult, when you're very pent up, because obviously I'm wanting it a lot. Now I'm excited. I know she works. Like, this feels good. This is fun. And so we would have sex, and then she would become nervous that she was getting sore. And so every time we had a sex act, every single time, we would start with some kind of foreplay. We make sure we used copious amounts of lube so that there was no chance of tearing or chafing or anything that could actually result in a real physical problem. I'm not a small man. So she's not been using this organ her entire life. So You want to make sure that everything is covered, if for no other reason than that she can check those boxes off in her head. Okay, I'm very lubricated. I don't have to worry about that. We're going to go very slow. He's not going to do anything to me that I don't want him to do. If at any point in time I become uncomfortable, we're going to stop. If at any point in time, you know, anything that happens, she's in control. She's in control. But now here's the kind of the game though. She's going to want to quit every time she gets to one of her programmed boundaries. So she may start to think something's going wrong when there's really nothing going wrong. And so there's times where you have to gently try to push her through a boundary. She starts to feel like there's some pain or discomfort, and then you can, are you sure? Let's slow down for a second. Okay, let me stop for a second. Okay, let me try this depth. Is that okay? Okay. Can we try a little faster? Can we go a little deeper? Like, let her brain work through each step. Yes, this is actually okay. This is okay. This is okay. This is okay. It's just like what she did professionally. Professionally, she was working with children whose brains were not communicating with their mouths. They have her specialty is in childhood apraxia of speech, where for some reason these kids they don't talk. They can't make normal speech sounds. And so she has to start at this very basic level with these children and start with each individual sound and train the mouth, sometimes literally putting her hands in their mouths to position their tongue or to move something around so that they can make like an R sound or an S sound or a T sound, and repeat this over and over and over, because that's the way the brain learns anything, is repetition, repetition, repetition. So any sexual problem that you possibly could have with your significant other is overcomable. You can overcome it if you have patience and you can build trust. Now my battery's gonna die, so I'll be right back. So, as I was saying, trust and communication are the two most important things in working through a sexual dysfunction or disorder, or whatever you want to call it, with your partner. That's the only way that you're going to be able to overcome anything, is with trust and communication. This is why I kind of joke about how my wife and I have a sexual debriefing every night. This is something that we have just learned to do since the beginning of our relationship, because it's necessary when you have a lot of problems. You can't always be talking through every little thing in the middle of the sex act, especially once you get over some of the original hurdles and you're just trying to orgasm or something. You don't want to be, I would make that mistake sometimes too much in the beginning. Like, I would treat her like a science fair experiment. So like the whole time we're trying to have intercourse, you know, I'm going, how about this? How about that? Is this, you know, too much, too little, little left, little right? And she's like, let's just fucking do it. We'll talk about it later. So once you build trust and you have patience, then you can start working through whatever arises. So one of the things that I had to overcome in the very beginning is that, of course, I want things to move very rapidly. So for me, it's like, once you figure out, okay, there's nothing wrong with the plumbing works. In my male brain, it's like, cool, problem solved, right? We're done. No, we're not done. Just because the plumbing worked did not equate to everything just going away. Probably, again, because you've got 27 years of bad thinking to overcome. And so, yeah, you have a couple of positive sexual experiences. And it's like, great. You know, as the man, you think, okay, we accomplished it. We fixed it. No, you didn't fix it. You have 2 good times in 27 years of misery. Okay, those 2 times are going to disappear into that 27 years of misery very rapidly. You have to build up a history of successful sexual interactions before she's really going to start trusting that this is real. Because she's already been to 1 million sex therapists and doctors and tried this drug or that therapy or this dilator or that toy, and you get some kind of success for a couple of weeks and then it goes back to normal. And so what you have to develop is a history of success. So for me, the first real challenge was that she was not self-lubricating. we kept having to use the lube. I fucking hate using lube. I've been with plenty of girls who were very, very naturally lubricated, and it is so much better in every conceivable way than having to use lube at all. And it was very frustrating for me. We had a lot of fights about it because I couldn't understand what the hang up was. Like, I know you can get wet because you do it sometimes. So why do you sometimes get wet and other times don't? And at the end of the day, I'm not God here, man. I'm just a guy. I'm just a guy trying to figure this out with her. And I have my own fucking challenges and shortcomings and hang-ups and insecurities too. And so I can get to a place where I'm starting to feel like I'm not good enough for her. Like I'm doing all of these things to try to fix these sexual problems. And yeah, we've made some progress, but it doesn't seem to be happening fast enough. And so I start feeling like, well, maybe I'm not the one. Maybe, you know, maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe I don't have all the magic stick that I thought I did, or I don't have all the fucking answers. And you start to get frustrated and you want to quit. And I wanted to quit many, many times. And what I figured out that I could do was kind of what she had done to cause the problem. I figured out that I could do something similar to fix the problem. So she had trained her brain to turn off sexual sensitivity. So I could train my brain to accept things that I thought should be unacceptable. My attitude toward pussy was that it should just get wet. I used to give her this analogy all the time. How would you feel if I could never get a hard on? You know, like I look at your wetness as your arousal state. So when you don't get wet, it makes me feel like you're not aroused. You don't want to be with me. How would you feel if my dick was broken all the time? And then of course she's upset. Now we're taking 3 steps back. And that's one of the challenges in a relationship is, you know, you both have feelings. And both of your feelings get hurt. And then you say things and it sets you back in the game. So finally what I figured out is that I had to just accept my wife for who she is. I had to stop letting this lube thing be the thing that was ruining sex right out the gate. Like I had gotten to the point where it's like, I just don't even want it. You know, just fuck it. I don't even want it. Like I'm so tired of this lube. It's just, you know, smearing it all over the bed. It's all over my hand. Like I want to just be able to roll over and get inside you. I don't want every time we have sex to be this whole production where you got to get out the pads and get out the lube. And it's just like, I don't want it. And maybe that's a deal breaker for some people. Maybe it should have been a deal breaker for me. I decided to not let it be a deal breaker. And so I just reprogrammed my brain to accept that this is what sex in my marriage is. This is just what it is. I take a lot of drugs to look the way I do. I don't just look like this naturally. And I've accepted that I have to poke myself with needles every single day to look like this. So I'm just going to accept that my wife, that we have to use lubricant in order for sex to work. That's just what I'm going to accept. And once I just made that commitment in my own mind, problem went away. Now I had control again. See, one of the things that I think causes the majority of problems is the lack of control. You feel like I'm not successful in making her body do what I want it to do. I failed. And so if you have that attitude, you will almost certainly fail. Because it's her body. She's in control of it. You can't control her thoughts. You can do everything right. You can wake up in the morning. You can give her a foot massage. You could have written her a sweet note overnight. You could go to work. You could send her all the right text messages. You could come home with a surprise gift of concert tickets to the theater in the park. You could buy her favorite. I mean, you could do every fucking single conceivable thing to put this girl into the perfect fucking mood. You could literally be the greatest guy on earth. And before sex, she could get nervous in her head and go, oh my God, he's done all of these amazing things for me all day long, and I just really want this to be the best sex he's ever had. And then that thought fucks everything up because she put all this pressure on herself and now her body shuts down. And then you feel responsible. You're like, what the fuck, dude? I did everything and it still doesn't work. And that's why this is a marathon. This is a lifelong struggle. If you have a partner that has any kind of, you know, sexual hang up and you want to get through that, there are just so many moving parts to being able to make that work. And so one of the things that I did was just accept this is what it is. I pin myself with needles to get big. I use lube to have sex. It's what it is. And so by this point in our marriage, we had overcome a lot of problems. By this point, she was having orgasms almost every single time. You know, we were having very functional sex. But again, the way that we got to the first parts of the functional sex was constant communication about all of our thoughts and feelings, and constantly being put into a state of trust where she felt like she could trust that I wasn't going to be out the fucking door every time that things didn't work out, even though, unfortunately, I did a lot to damage that because I did threaten divorce on more than one occasion. Then that's definitely not what you want to do. Learn from my mistakes. Do not do that when you're trying to work through sexual problems with your girl. And so over the years, and it took a long time, I'm going to fuck it up right now even saying this, she finally learned to trust her own body enough to believe the truth, which is there is nothing wrong with you. Your plumbing works. In her case, she just doesn't have a sex drive that's pushed to start. And so it takes some lead up. But she has now gotten to the point where she can generally get herself perfectly lubricated for sex in a few minutes time, and we can have an entire sex act and never ever have to use lubricant. That is a huge victory for us, and it took a very, very long time to get there, with a lot of steps forward and a lot of steps back. But with the right attitude and a commitment to your partner, you can overcome any of these hurdles. Another thing that I've talked about at length on this channel when I get on my trend rants and rages is that I probably do again to her upbringing and her vaginal atrophy, and her body never, it's just like a kid. Like when you have a baby, part of the way a toddler develops their immune system is they put every fucking thing they touch in their mouths. They explore with their mouths. I mean, can you imagine? Like, I remember watching my sons crawl around the floor and just pick shit up and put it in their mouth. They're like chewing on the chair leg. They're just and you're like, how is this kid alive? If I don't wash my hands 10 times a day, I get a cold. Like, I can't even touch a doorknob at the gym without hitting the hand sanitizer. I'm gonna be fucking sick for 3 days. This kid's eating off the floor and he's perfectly fine. When you're in a developmental phase, what the child has to do is be exposed to bacteria so that he can develop, or she can develop, the gut biome with all the good, healthy bacteria in it, which aids in digestion and all kinds of things. That's what builds your immune system, is coming into contact with pathogens so that your body can learn to identify them. I think the reason that my wife has so many BV, so she has a lot of struggles with bacterial infections, not so much yeast infections, it's primarily bacterial infections. I believe that the reason for this is because she didn't have the developmental phase. She wasn't sticking hairbrushes and whatever weird toys she could find to masturbate. She wasn't sticking dirty fingers in her vagina. She wasn't getting fiddled in the back of a car with some guy. Like, all of these kind of dirty things that we do when we're young, teenagers, preteens, when we're exploring the world, we don't really know. All of those things are introducing various kinds of bacteria to her vaginal canal, to her vagina, which is going to build the natural vaginal flora. That's what I believe. I don't know, I'm not a fucking doctor. But what I believe is that that basically what she missed out on was the crawling, putting everything in your mouth phase. She missed out on the phase where her body should have been developing its own natural good bacteria. And so because she doesn't have any of the good bacteria in her vagina, the bad bacteria have a tendency to overgrow at the slightest little problem. So she can have her vaginal pH and everything in this perfectly functional space, have a period, break everything. You know, we can have sex 2 times in a row and the pH of my semen is different than the pH, and it'll break everything. We have tried, I could make an entire video of all of the shit we have tried to do to fix her infection problems. We have tried fucking everything. We've tried crazy shit we found online. We've tried doctors. We've tried, there's nothing we haven't tried. I guarantee you, there's nothing we haven't tried. until I fixed the problem. And you know what helped me fix the problem? Tren. Trenbolone helped me fix the fucking problem. One day, I was standing in the bathroom after sex, and I could smell the fishy smell. I could smell, it's not always fishy, but I could smell the infection literally emanating off of me after sex. And it used to piss me off so fucking bad. It was one of the biggest fights we had in our marriage. Why do I have to put up with this shit? You know, I want to go down on her. I can't because she's got an infection. Why am I having to put up with this shit? Why can't we just fix this? Like, what is wrong with this fucking girl? I would be so frustrated about it. And it very nearly ended our marriage on more than one occasion. And so anytime that I caught a whiff of her on my body, it would just trigger that anger response in me. And so I decided to conquer it. I decided this is not gonna fucking beat me. I'm gonna find a way to overcome what medical science cannot seem to fucking fix. All of the antibiotics and everything we had tried, nothing was fixing this fucking problem. And so, spoiler alert, this may be a little bit gross to some of you. I decided I was going to reprogram my brain. So when we would have sex, I wouldn't wash myself after sex. I would let all of her juices and stuff sit on my body. And then I would be sitting in here in my computer playing a video game, you know, writing quotes for work, whatever. And I would occasionally think about sex. I would think about positive things. I would think about how much I wanted to have sex with my wife. And I would rub some of that smell from my nether region and I would smell it. That's what I started doing. I slowly programmed my brain by thinking positive thoughts about sex and smelling the smell of her infection on my fingers until I trained my brain to be turned on by her smells. So now, we don't have a problem at all. I will eat her pussy in any conceivable condition. I don't give a shit. The number of times I've eaten her pussy and literally had blood in my beard have been more than one. I will eat her pussy. I don't care what fucking condition it is, as long as it's clean on the outside. You know, if something's going on inside, like, I can't be bothered with that. I physically, through repetition and thought, began to program my brain to associate the smell of her vagina with positive sexual thoughts until the point that her smells became a turn on instead of a turn off. I'm a filthy, filthy motherfucker these days. Nothing turns me on more in this way. It turned into a fetish for me. I love smelling her pussy right after the gym, or her feet if they're sweaty. Any kind of stinky fucking body odor, that shit is like Viagra for me, because I reprogrammed the way my brain looked at the situation. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. Like, I don't get sick ever from going down on her. Whatever the fuck is growing in there, whatever causes these smells, it's not communicable. It doesn't make me sick ever. And so I knew that there was no actual threat to me. It doesn't seem to cause her any other problems. The chronic antibiotic use is far worse than just the occasional infections themselves. And so I figured, like, why do I have to view this as a negative? I'm choosing to view something about my wife that she can't help. She can't help it. She's done everything a woman can do to try to solve this problem, and none of it works. So the one thing I can do, we can't make the infections go away, but I can choose to change how I think about them. So that's what I did. I programmed myself to be turned on by vaginal infections. And I tell you, the trend works, man. So when you guys ask, does the trend make you do dirty shit? Yes. I eat dirty pussy and lick sweaty, stinky feet. Her feet never stink, unfortunately. But I just learned to be turned on by all of the carnal, the real shit about a person. Anybody can love a person when they're all nice and clean, sweet and perfect. That's easy to do. It's hard to love a person for who they really the fuck are inside. That's the least that I can do for her. Because she loves me through all of my fucked up ass flaws. And so I got to a place where I stopped judging all of her imperfections and found a way to turn the negatives into positives. And now we have 0 sex problems. So after all of these years of misery and suffering that she had previous relationships, after all of the fucking struggles we had early on in our relationship, what I found out is the key most important thing in overcoming any single problem you could have with your partner is to love them, trust them, make them, help them to trust you, be open and honest. Tell the fucking truth. Baby, you're infected right now. Like, I don't pull any fucking punches. I'll tell her when, when something's going on. She'll be like, I know. Is that okay? I'm like, yeah, that's good, You have to be open and honest with each other about every single thing. Because you need to have a relationship based on truth. If you have a relationship based on lies, it will definitively fall apart. You cannot maintain it. The truth will always win out. So if we love each other for who we really the fuck are and stop trying to become something we're not, then that we can bank on. She knows who the fuck I am. She knows that every time I say I'm never doing Trent again, probably gonna fucking do Trent again. She's learned to navigate my ups and downs and knows what kind of things set me off and all my quirks and all my fucking pros and cons. I've learned hers. And we've learned to accept and love each other just as we are. And when you do that, there's no fucking problem that you could possibly have that you cannot overcome if you are willing to. I'm not saying that you have to. I'm not even saying that I should have or it's the right thing to do. I'm sure there's going to be people in the fucking comment section like, bro, you are fucking disgusting. I'm puking over here listening to this shit. Puke, brother. Puke. I don't give a fuck. I love it. I love it. I have programmed myself to love my wife for exactly who she is. And that makes this the perfect scenario because then I always get what I want. If you program yourself to love and want what you already have, there's no reason to go look anywhere else. Nobody else has any of the things that I want because I program myself to want what I already have. So there you have it. That's just some of the things that I've done, that we've done. And I could get into every little gory detail of a handful of other scenarios. But the key points here is that you have to harness the power of the mind to overcome all of the issues you have in life because that's where all of the issues actually reside. The vast majority of problems are in your head. If it's not a virus or a bacteria, something that can be treated or something that your body's going to get over really quickly, if you don't have an actual morbid condition, what you have is a problem with the way that you think, and you are the only person who is capable of changing that. You can manipulate yourself into liking, loving anything you want if you put in enough effort to it. There is nothing you cannot overcome if you want it bad enough. So whatever you want in this life, go out and get it. You can get it if you want it badly enough. Thank you for watching this video. As always, we'll see you on the next one.